Okay, my camera's
Hi, everyone,
on.
and welcome to the Star Seeds and Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal, and I'm so excited for this evening. We are going to be having Angela Levasseur, who has been with us before, and she is just
Okay,
a
so it's an
fountain of knowledge and a wealth of information. And tonight's presentation is going to be we're going to have we're going to look at different topics tonight. We're going to be, well, not different topics, but we're going to be looking at different aspects of the 3 days of darkness, because as many of you know, 3 days of darkness is often mentioned in relation to the Bible. And it's a concept that is in many ways apocalyptic and all that. But we're going to start off maybe from the biblical and prophetic aspect and then work our way through the science, because I think that there's definitely a science behind it. I don't feel that it's just prophecy, but we're going to get different perspectives this evening. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And definitely have your questions ready to go, because we're going to be exploring different aspects. And I really like the idea of discussion, because I know that a lot of you are going to have different opinions and what it means. And also share with us if you have a different faith, for example, if you come from a different background. Hey, Angela, we're seeing you now. Hey there. You have your microphone? Whoops. Uh-oh. We heard you before. Now we can't hear you. Okay, did you unmute? Are you muted? Okay, Andy, did you turn her microphone up? No? Is she up? Okay. Well, we're still, as always, this is the beauty of being live. We have usual technical difficulties, but we're going to be working through them. And okay, so far it looks like the audio is.
Audio.
Oh, now can we hear you?
Now you can hear me?
I can hear you now. Great. Yay.
I didn't do anything. Didn't do anything.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, you
The
know
magic.
what? I asked Archangel Michael, I said, please make this work.
Perfect.
And it's working.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So, Andy, I think you might have to turn her up a bit, because I got a comment that we can't hear her that well. Okay. Okay, so this evening, so we're going to, I'm just going to just zoom in here so we get you. And it's the speaker view, there you go. So I'm just going to make myself disappear. So this evening we are going to be welcoming channel and intuitive healer and Reiki master and everything else under the sun. I mean, you've done it all.
Many other things.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, though. I'm doing light language more often now, and I'm doing a lot more channeling to different realms and getting messages and visitors on a regular basis.
That's great.
Of the kind that you cannot see.
That's perfect. So
there's Kevin.
Oh, there's Kevin. Is Kevin around? Kevin?
Well, I can see him.
Okay, I just need to.
Here. There he is.
Hey, Kevin.
I'm here.
Hey,
How's
Kevin.
it going?
How you doing?
Not bad.
Okay,
Sorry,
so we have, I think we're going to do the speaker view, because I think that's going to make a lot more sense. So I'm trying to, we're still trying to work out the technical aspect of it, because we have Kevin as well. Kevin is the host of the podcast, The Pyramids of Mars. And he's also a very, very gifted and amazing musician. So you definitely should check out his music on his site, Pyramids on Mars. And we will be hearing from him. He will be sharing with us his experiences as an experiencer. He's been in contact with a race of ET aliens called the Ponti, and he's going to be giving their perspective and as well his perspective on what the 3 days of darkness could be, because it's not just about darkness, it's a lot of different aspects under the sun, no pun intended. So we'll get started. Hi, Kevin. So, hey there. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
All right, cool. Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint that I wanted to follow, and we can sort of, comment. And Kevin at any time, or Angela at any time, just, pop in and give us your perspective. But before we start, I just wanted to say, everybody, if you could please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel and it helps us to get the word out there. So I'd just like it if you could just sort of take a moment to like and subscribe. That would be great. So before we get started, I just wanted to sort of maybe do a bit of an intro in terms of what your perspective is. I know we're going to be talking a lot more about the whole idea about 3 Days of Darkness, but Angela, did you want to sort of just give us like a quick overlay of what this topic in particular means to you?
Well, 3 Days of Darkness means many things to me, to be perfectly honest. And I've been seeing more and more perspectives of it on Facebook, on X, on a couple of the other places that I happen to follow. It's a reset, essentially, for mankind in general, for people who are on Earth, specifically humans. And I term that very lightly because we have many different species of humans here, including those who may be hybrids, but as far as I'm aware, they will not be included in this. But from my understanding and channels that I've gotten with somebody else, a lot of it is also a reset of those that are right-minded, those that are pure of heart are going to remain. And one of the theories is that those who are not will literally be destroyed.
Okay.
Now, as I said, that's one of the theories that I've seen. The other theory I've seen is essentially that those who are right-minded and self-love, they love, the planet, and they're trying to ascend, they are going to continue to ascend based on these 3 days of darkness. There's also other avenues that I've heard and seen, which is essentially, the solar flares are going to completely wipe us out of all of our communication, all of our satellites, everything else. So there's a lot of different varying theories on it. And I don't have one specific that I'm leaning towards because I believe all of these are possible.
Yeah.
It just depends on where you happen to fall into that category.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of what I was saying, is that, we have one particular topic, but it has many, many different facets. So we have a lot of stuff going on here tonight. And there can be, like you said, it can fall into any aspect. It just depends on where we're at. And I'm really hoping to sort of hear from the audience tonight, because I think that it's also, I'd like to see what other people are thinking and what they feel would happen. Kevin, did you have a quick introduction or interlude as to what you feel the 3 Days of Darkness is about?
Well, what I can talk about is the Ponti, are what they're extremely concerned about is the geomagnetic excursions that are taking place on this planet.
Okay.
with the poles that are moving away from magnetic north and south. But I also know that Radar alluded to one thing at one point, but he never went into the Ponti, behind me. They used, and one time Radar made an interesting comment, but he didn't explain what it was, and he said, if you go back in your history, it's marked of a time where the sun never set, or the sun never rose, or the sun remained in its place and didn't move. You know what's happening there, right? Question mark. Quote unquote. That's what he said, but he never ever alluded anything else to explain what he meant by that.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting, and we're going to come back to Kevin again, because I think we also Kevin will give us a little bit more background as to the experiences he's having with the Ponti, and give us a little bit more introduction as to the different members of that ET race that he's in contact with. But we'll get started. And I think that we can definitely look at let's move that here, and get an idea of what is going to be happening. So I know that some people have an idea. Like, first of all, people used to would think that, okay, maybe the 3 Days of Darkness was going to come during 2012. 2012 was a time when people thought that we would be I'm trying to do technical stuff at the same time, so I'm sort of sounding kind of strange. But in terms of 2012, a lot of people felt that we would be involved in the 3 Days of Darkness then. And then when it didn't happen, we were like, okay, maybe it's going to be at another time. Now, as we've talked on the show before, 2025, 2026, and in particular 2027 are going to be some very, very interesting times. Anybody who has any kind of inkling in terms of astrology knows that these next couple of years are going to be something else. So it seems that within this time frame, we can expect the 3 Days of Darkness, but also some people I've also been hearing people saying, yeah, it's going to be coming this year. But we'll see. So I'll let you guys be the judge. All right. So tonight we are going to be talking about the 3 Days of Darkness, and so it basically starts with the idea of prophecy, and basically says that contrary to popular belief, the coming of the 3 Days of Darkness is a pervasive idea that is held by many Christians. And it's supposed to be something that is supposed to take place during the end times. And it's not specifically written in the Bible, but it's a concept that alludes to various biblical passages. And so furthermore, the prophecy of the 3 Days of Darkness, which figures prominently with the Catholic tradition, mentions that these nights will only be pierced by the blessing of beeswax candles during this time, and that all the enemies of the church will perish. Now, this sort of sounds like what I think what Angela was talking about. Angela, did you want to comment on that?
Well, it's funny that you would mention that it's the church specifically. And really, if you look at not necessarily in the church or the Catholic Church, but there are other nations. The Mayans are one of the ones that have forecast the days of darkness. They don't necessarily 3 days don't necessarily say 3 days. However, it has been overshadowed. The other thing I'll mention is if you look at the timelines of when we are supposed to have a reset of Earth, we're past due. They've been talking about it being in a specific cycle. If you look back historically, we are definitely past due. And they have been saying between the magnetic pole shifts and the sun, this does happen. I believe it's every 20, I might be wrong on the days specifically. I believe it's like 29,000 years, something along that line. I have too many numbers in my head right now, but it's something that they've already said. They have proof that it has happened. They have proof that it should be happening again and that it should have already happened. Unfortunately, with our current climate, we are causing things to delay because we've had so many different climate changes and geological changes over the last number of years that we really have affected Earth on our own too. So now with the specifics of the Catholic or the that particular sector of people, it's also people such as the elites that they're referring to, the people, and I know this is a very controversial topic. I'm not trying to get into that portion, but if you look at a lot of what's been on the news, people who are child trafficking, people who are essentially governing these sectors of money, people who are essentially keeping us stuck and keeping us in the matrix itself, those are the ones that are supposed to be perishing. A lot of those are also inclusive of those that just have a really dark heart and who are essentially looking to keep anyone from ascending. That is something that I've been seeing more and more, and I've posted several things on a couple of different group chats that I'm aware of. because people need to be aware that, hey, yeah, these things do exist. We can turn a blind eye to them all we want, but they're still there. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeing so much destruction at this point, because those sectors are being targeted. I do have contact with someone else, and I believe that they are part of the catalyst for those things changing, whether you're talking about people who are under, SSF, whether it's people who are in galactic races, etc. They're all part and parcel of it. And unfortunately, that's one of the revelations that they've been talking about. And it's been for years. It's not something hidden. It's just hidden to those that don't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that really I think resonates, and it rings very true because I feel that there is definitely something to be said when it comes to when it comes to the idea of the 3 days of darkness. Now, sometimes, and when I was doing a bit of research into this, there was also a lot of reference to the idea of an eclipse, because sometimes the eclipse would scare different people, ancient people from ancient times, and so they would see the eclipse as a problem, basically as a harbinger of darkness, which it technically is, because when you have an eclipse and it becomes dark, people thought, well, that's it. So I'm wondering also as well if that also encouraged people to think that it was going to be the 3 days of darkness then. And what's interesting is the eclipses were the oldest. The oldest eclipse on record is the dates around 1200 BCE, and the scribes of China took note of these eclipses. And during that time, the Chinese had a myth that it was an event where the dragon was swallowing the sun. There's also aspects in Greek mythology where the solar eclipse were seen as omens of misfortune, often interpreted as a sign of the gods, displeasure as a literal abandonment of the sun. The word eclipse itself comes from the Greek word meaning eclipsis, meaning abandonment or forsaken. So again, there's this whole sort of concept of the idea that mankind was at the mercy of these different gods. And so that's sort of where the idea of the 3 days of darkness also may have taken root, because people were experiencing these things and didn't understand the science behind it. And then in ancient Egypt, the serpent Apep, a spirit of evil and chaos, was said to swallow the sun god Ra. And it would require an army of other deities to fight Apep and cut him open to release Ra and prevent the world from being plunged into darkness. So the idea of darkness, I think, is really, and that's the real issue, because we take for granted that we have light and that we are not threatened by, let's say, wild animals. But the idea of darkness is something that was very scary for early men. And so I think that this is probably why there was a lot of fear in that, Did you want to say anything? I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I totally agree. In fact, if you look back at some of the Mayan, Aztec, and Incan peoples as well, very common, they would sacrifice children, or they would put up sacrifices when it was the days of darkness, simply because they were trying to appease the gods. And interestingly, you were talking about the eclipses coming up. Solstice, the June solstice, summer solstice, has also been targeted as a main date. And I've seen that several times lately, where they're talking that will be a main catalyst for a number of other big events coming in. I will also say that in one of the channels that I had, the beings, and I have to be careful how I word this so it doesn't get misconstrued, the beings that are responsible for wiping out the scourge, a lot of what they're doing is being done now, And that's, as I said, that's one of the reasons we're seeing the fires, we're seeing these big child trafficking cults, coming to an end, et cetera. And we're seeing a lot of different things happening. But a lot of it is also being made to look accidental so that it doesn't scare the general populace.
Mm-hmm.
And that was literally told to me by one of the beings that came to me. And that's how it was explained. It's so that the general populace does not become terrified, very much in keeping with, first contact.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want the general populace to be terrified. So we're giving it to them a little bit at a time.
Okay.
But it is happening.
Yeah. So it's basically like especially with contact, it's a slow drip, and people are being acclimated to the concept of having, neighbors. Why not? Galactic neighbors. And it's interesting because I think if we'd had this conversation 10, 20 years ago, it would have been kind of seen as, tinfoil hats, and nobody would have taken it seriously. But I find, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find that people seem to be really, is everybody ready? No, I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to be kind of flipping out. But I know from what I've also heard that we're definitely going to be having first contact very soon, within another year or year or two at most. And I think that the whole idea about the 3 days of darkness might, like we were saying, it could be something that happens before, and then that leads to a resetting of what's going on here on the planet. But yes, there's a lot of destruction. But you know what, though? A lot of people have also said that even within the destruction, you have to sort of remain centered and know that this is a part of this whole resetting, the whole changeover. Now, I had an interesting comment here from Laura Lockwood. And she says it's the collective consciousness that's delaying this. So I think it goes back to what Angela was saying about there seems to be delayed. And it's assisting in raising the vibration of yourself and others, and then a domino effect will occur. Well, I think I really agree with that. What do you think?
Absolutely. I do agree with that. And as we heal each other. Mm-hmm. People don't realize that even small gestures, just being trying to be more happy, trying to do a good deed towards someone else. And it's not purposely having to do that. It's doing it from your heart. As we heal ourselves, we ultimately heal each other and the collective itself. And I have seen a huge difference in it. There are a lot of people who don't subscribe to it, and you cannot force someone else's healing. That is one of the biggest things people don't realize. You can explain it to them. You can help them a little bit on their way if they ask for help, but you are the only one that can heal yourself. You are the only one who is responsible for yourself. And once you start taking, and I very often post things like that on my Facebook site, because I think it's very, very, very important. And I mentor several people in that aspect of it, because it's not an easy task. And it sounds wonderful, especially to be light workers, whatever. It comes with a hell of a lot of hard work and a lot of healing, a lot of grief, a lot of dark nights of the soul, and just a lot of things that people glorify that aren't there. Yeah. So, if anybody's going through that, and I would think most of our subscribers are or have, but it's not done. It's a lifetime journey, and it's something, it takes a lot from you, and it can be exhausting at times, and it can also be a very, very lonely path. But ultimately, we are out there for each other and for the collective. And that's what it is that we're doing, is raising the consciousness. After all, we are connected to each other. We're all light, and the light is all connected to each other, collective and otherwise. Are you, it looks like you have something there that you're trying to
Yeah, I'm just trying to, sorry, go on.
No, it's quite all right. Actually, I'm surprised I had a cat that was in here the same as your poster, so luckily my friend took the cat out.
Yeah, my cat was doing that as well. But before we came on air, you and I were talking about different energies and how different energies were going to be affecting people. Could you just sort of go into that? Because I think that this is also part of it, because I think that we're looking at the idea that, and this whole concept is about a shift from the old world to the new world. And I mean, I know that we were talking about how this year numerologically is also a 9 year. Do you want to just sort of just
Yes, it
go into
is.
that?
Well, a 9 is a rebirth year, or a new, starting brand new. And we definitely are in the 9 cycle. A lot of people may not realize that really our new year started in March, and that's when you go back to the old scrolls before they put in 12 months. We didn't have 12 months. So March was actually the start of our new year. And if you look back, March was actually when there was starting to be a huge catalyst of change. January, not so much. February, not so much. And with regard to the energy, we have coming on May 24th, Saturn is moving into Aries. This is the first time in almost 30 years that this is happening. So what is happening essentially, and again, I post a lot of this on my Facebook
Yeah.
sites, just simply because I find it interesting for people to understand and to be able to relate. We're closing out old cycles. We are being given the chance at this point in our lives to look back over the last 7 to 15 years or longer and look at where was it that maybe we gave away our power? Where was it that we have been fooling ourselves? Where was it that we've had major changes that we should have made and didn't? So this is sort of a chance to clear the air, to look back at those, and also to see, and this is a big part of it, where people who are not raising our vibration, if someone's draining you, they don't necessarily belong within your soul family or within your power. You can still, be with that person and be distanced from them, but if someone is not bringing you happiness, if they're draining you, I happen to have a friend specifically that every time I talked to them, it was very, very draining on me. And I finally thought, you know what? I don't need this person in anywhere within my personal space. And as much as, yes, it's been questioned, I don't miss it because I don't miss the drain on myself. And
Yeah.
people don't realize that's giving away your personal power.
Exactly.
So, if you're around people, and that's what soul family is, that's what soul ties are. When you talk to somebody, they should be lifting you up, not pushing you down. And that's all part of what this energy is it's showing people now who is your soul family, who are your soul ties, who is your soul community in general, and who possibly is your collective. I've been very fortunate, especially through Kevin, to meet a number of different soul family and belong to newer groups now, where I felt very, very alone at one point because there was no one like me that was out there. Exactly. Now I have other people around me, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, and even our group here, people have to realize, if you know people who are in that kind of a situation, who, maybe they're a little bit different, maybe they are a soul person, or maybe they're just interested, they've got something going on, they don't know what's going on, I refer them to here. And I constantly post it on my pages because there are so many of us out there. They don't, oh, absolutely. But there's so many of them out there that don't realize they are not alone. It feels like it, but they're not.
No.
So
yeah.
Thank you to both of you for welcoming me into the family, because if not, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Oh, big hearts, big hearts. And and Kevin, where are you, Kevin?
I'm right here.
You're right there. And
I'm right here. Yeah.
You're right
there.
and Kevin, did you I know that we let me just going on here. Okay, so Kevin, I know that we have been, talking, and I want to sort of get, what is your perspective? I know we're going to go into the Ponte a little bit later, but based on what you've been hearing from the Ponte and also from other groups, what the 3 days of darkness could be about. Like, are there other, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, are there other ET races that are gearing up? Because I feel as if, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel as if people are, when I say people, I mean different races, galactic beings, are out there waiting. They're sort of just on the edge. They're waiting for something to happen, this 3 days of darkness. And then when that happens, they're going to just zoom right in. So I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, Kevin?
Well, what I do know is going back back to about November of 2023. We got notification, or the Ponte had notification that they made that there was Star Nation dignitaries from deep space had been arriving at the Sandia Mountain Information Station, basically making preparations for an evacuation, an Earth evacuation, because they've been monitoring the sun's activity and the planet Earth's activity. And it reached a point where they were very, very concerned, and they were preparing for an evacuation emergency. So, because they honestly thought that a coronal mass ejection, a solar event, would occur as early as the summer of 2024. So that was the first time that we heard that we all started getting scared, because the Ponte were they changed their telepathic perspective or focus, where they can be in casual mode, but then once something serious happens, they're like extremely focused, serious, and as Sue Walker, the telepath for the Ponte, will say, they sometimes go dark on her for like days, sometimes weeks, where she gets nothing from them. So, but during this period of time, that there was a lot of talk about this evacuation plans, not to make it sound like that they're leaving us and going and leaving us to perish to whatever happens. That's not it at all. It's the equivalent of when you're on an airplane and the stewardess is going through the protocols of if a mask falls down for oxygen, put your mask on first before you assist others. That's kind of with the same thing. They want to make sure that they are safe, that they're out of harm's way when these energies come from the sun, if there is a massive sneeze, basically, so that they can survive it and then be able to provide assistance. So that's, as far as other star nations goes, that's what I've known that they have said. Getting also into more about Days of Darkness. A great person to follow on Twitter, or on X, I should say, is Space Weather News with Ben Davidson. So he's a solar observer who's constantly watching the sun. He's one of the global expert. He's got millions of followers. He really knows what's going on, and he has put out lots of videos regarding the geomagnetic excursion of what's occurring, what's happening in our solar system, how it's affecting all the planets. He goes into the history of the cycles of what's happened to the Earth over tens of thousands of years, and we are definitely in the middle of this geomagnetic excursion. But he also mentioned, talking about one point, if a solar micronova does happen, with the effects on the Earth, it can also cause the sun to go black, create a black sun.
Wow.
Have you ever heard of the black sun?
You know what? I've heard of black sun. Now, mind you, I've heard of black sun in relation to the Chula Society and different type of mystical traditions. I'm not okay. So the science behind this would be that it would turn black completely.
The sun imagine the sun, like it's still radiant, right?
Okay.
But now the disk is black. Still radiant, but the disk is black. The whole sun is up like a black disk.
Wow. And I mean, I'm not going to ask the whole science tonight, but do you know what it is that would cause it to go black? Because I mean, the idea of, like, for example, a star imploding turns into a black hole. So I'm like, we'd be in big trouble if that happened. So what's happening exactly with...
I'm not sure. I was trying to look that up before before this show, and my modem kicked out, and I was trying to fight to get my internet back. So,
okay.
Doris discussion.
It's your fault. You did it. Don't give me that look.
That's so sweet. Well, you know what? When I've been looking at in doing this presentation and doing the research, I also came upon some of that information as well about how the sun would be a part of the of a part of this whole thing. Now, we talked just briefly. We talked a little bit about how the sun would make an effect, how solar flares would affect the body. And so, solar flares, which are basically sudden intense bursts of energy from the sun, are common celestial events. Powerful flares can cause disruptions to radio communications and navigation, and potentially affect power grids and satellites. Now, I think one of the more famous solar flares, now we've had a couple of them actually since the 2000s, but there was one that took place, I think, in 1850 or 1859. And
The Carrington event.
Yeah, a Carrington event, and it took place in the United States. And it's interesting because that pretty much fried a lot of people's
Telegraphs.
yeah,
It fried the
telegraphs
telegraphs.
and a lot of things. But the thing is, back then they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have cell towers, they didn't have a whole digital economy, they didn't have half of what the lifestyle in a modern setting. A lot of it is run by computers. A lot of it is all digital. And I know the Carrington event took place, and then it it affected people, but it didn't really affect them that much because they didn't have that many.
They were not dependent on.
They weren't dependent. But right now, I don't know. And I mean, I want to look at the spiritual aspect, but also we're going to get back to the Carrington event because that's also about the solar flares. And so, in April 2025, the Earth received some of its most powerful flares on record. And from a New Age perspective, these flares are in the process of affecting human DNA and reigniting the so-called junk DNA, which is believed to be DNA that is dormant, but which contains aspects of our humanity that rule over aspects of telepathic ability, clairvoyance, heightened intuition, empathy, and it's a disconnection to always a thinking and a deeper connection with the divine. Now, I know that Angela and I were talking about that just a moment ago, but Angela, did you want to comment on the whole idea of the junk DNA? Because I think that that's a big aspect of what will be happening once the sun, well, it's already happening now, but I think a part of this whole 3 days of darkness is going to maybe have this big flash that would, affect our bodies. And then we have let's say 3 days to recover. And then we get into a new form of humanity. Did you want to comment?
I absolutely can comment on that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was watching something with Ireland Clark a couple of days ago, and she was commenting on this. What people don't or may not realize is that originally we did not have the number of chromosomes and the genetics that we currently have. That was an engineered process by, I will call them negative ET beings as far as one theory goes, and that we are supposed to have several other strands of DNA within us, and they were literally removed and stripped away from us. The whole idea being that we are light beings. That's why we're going from a 3D to a 5D, et cetera. But I mean, we can go much higher than that, 12D, et cetera. And people are now starting to realize that the sun, and you can find this on many different sites. The theory behind it is that the sun isn't just a generator of warmth and heat to us. It literally, being that we are light beings, generates our bodies, and it helps to reinstill our telepathy, our love, our intuition. I mean, there are so many other aspects to us than what people realize. They're there, but they're dormant because we are, as especially as children, we're brought up in a society, which I will call the matrix, where we have all of these other rules. And essentially, once you get to a certain age, you're told, well, you have to do for other people. You have to serve humanity and, put in your time and earn it. We're really, if you look at the theories behind what the newest information is, that's really not what it's all about. Yes, we serve humanity, but we serve as brothers and sisters. We don't have jealousy. We don't have hatred. We do not, traffic people. We do not commit,
atrocities and
serious
all that.
things to other people. And that's part of it. Yes, I do agree that, and this is, as I said, one theory, because there are so many different ones. They are saying that these solar flares, and anyone who subscribes to any of the different websites where they're talking about what the solar flares are doing to people's bodies, people very often will become foggy. They will have body aches and body pains, which a lot of times is manifested as dis-ease within your body, because we have healing that requires to be done. Once you start doing those healing, a lot of that happens to lift. And if you look at these solar flares and what they're actually causing in people, very often within a couple of days, it might take a little bit longer, depends on how much healing you have to do, you will start to find that you have gifts coming out. You might not understand what they are. You might just all of a sudden one day be able to see pixelations. You might be able to start having a higher telepathy or a higher intuition, or have more healing powers. You may see auras around your hands. I mean, those are just a few of the many ones that are coming out. But we all have these gifts.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially in the last few months.
Oh, yeah. Can you tell us, Kevin? So we'll come back to Angela, but Kevin, did you want to tell us your experience? Like, what have you been experiencing recently?
Because of these, well, I've been watching the Schumann resonance quite closely for the last several months. The last 2 months have been probably the most brutal that I've ever experienced. It doesn't matter how much sleep I get. These the bombardments have just been knocking me right out. Exhaustion, where I'm falling asleep at work. I have no control of it. It's making me really tired, or it's it would wake me up early in the morning when I'm trying to sleep, and then I can't go back to sleep because the sun is flaring up. So it's like you're getting it bombarded, back and forth, where you're burning the candle at both ends and you can't get any rest. But also, what I've been noticing throughout the last 2 months is my consciousness has been increasing, where I feel buzzed, like very, very and highly in tuned. My emotions are balanced. I'm feeling a difference. And in the last few weeks, my telepathy has spiked, has been really getting better. I am, I started practicing, the Ponte started working with me back in August of last year. I had some teachers that were showing up and they said, you're eventually going to be hearing your neighbors or seeing your neighbors telepathically through their eyes. Do not be alarmed. That's normal. And then eventually you'll be able to differentiate the Ponte voices who are speaking to you. So I've been working on developing my telepathy, and then it was happening, and it started happening just like they said, back in August, with seeing through people's eyes and hearing things telepathically, hearing a curtain banging, in the wind next to my left ear when I don't have that in my room, and I'd be hearing different things. And then eventually I heard Tani, my Ponte teacher. That was September 4th, 2024, 4:54 Mountain Standard Time. I heard her voice say, every morning and every evening, practice this. So I've been practicing it. But what I've noticed in the last 2 weeks, I think it may have something to do with these flares. I've been emailing, responding to friends before they've sent their question. or they're in the process of sending a question, and I respond to them before they actually send the question. You know, it was happening more and more, and it was freaking my friends out.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. So you know what though? That's pretty impressive. And so this has been happening to you on a regular basis, Kevin?
Just, well, actually recently it's happening more, where my telepathy is getting a lot sharper, where I'm hearing, I'm picking out what are my thoughts and what are other people's thoughts much better now.
Yeah.
And I'm also now in the last couple weeks, I'm hearing telepathically. Not like I've had the experience of hearing a voice speaking just like you're hearing my voice,
Okay.
hearing it telepathically. I've had that, but now it's gotten even deeper where I am hearing people's thoughts. So I'm hearing thoughts in other people's voices. So I'm picking that up. Where one morning I was listening and I heard a woman talking, or she was thinking to herself, and I heard her thoughts. And then about 30 seconds later, I picked up this. It was a mantis.
Oh.
I picked up a mantis's thoughts, and I heard them.
Okay. Wow.
And then yesterday morning, telepathically, I heard a woman say my name, and I recognized the voice because I've heard it before. I just didn't know who it was. I think it could be one of the Ponte girls, one of the girls from the Sandia Mountain. I'm still trying to get a notification on that. So my telepathy has really started to improve in the last 2 months or 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it maybe has something to do with these energies that are coming through the sun, possibly, or it could just be that my telepathy is developing to new stages.
Well,
it's still undecided yet.
Well, but you know what though? I think that there's definitely something to be said, because I can tell you, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I thought, okay, what's wrong with me? I've been so tired. Everybody around me has been tired. Like, I mean, and okay, I may not get as much sleep as I'd like to, but I'm always dog tired, and everybody I speak to has been dog tired. And everybody's just feeling drained, because it's one thing to be tired, but to feel drained, like really drained and just like sucked dry. I find that's something that's been happening more and more. And I know that my partner, he is always gets a lot of sleep, and yet he's still tired. He'll say, oh, I was gonna get this done, but and he's tired, and I don't get it, because I don't see how someone who sleeps that much can still be drained. Now, in terms
it's happening to a lot of us.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people.
Describing
Exactly.
the same thing.
Yeah. And then, but on top of it, the thing that you pointed out, which really sort of stuck out for me, was when you said that you're getting up in the middle of the night and you're like, okay, why am I up? And that's been happening to me more and more. And I just think, geez, I don't get it. Like, and I know there's this whole sort of concept of getting up at 3 a.m. There's this sort of idea of getting up at 3 a.m, and that it's a specific time, especially for meditation and to connect with higher beings. But still, I find that my sleeping's been out of whack. I've been having a lot of joint pain, and it's really, I'm really feeling it. I really feel it, and I think that a lot of people are feeling these energies. And I think, based on what Angela was saying, is that the energies are very strong now, and I find that they're getting stronger. And I think this definitely could tie in with what we were talking about. Now, I do have a comment or two here. And maybe, Kevin, you might want to take this one. So I have here, Susan Johnson says that because you talked to Kevin about how the sun would turn into a dark disk and would still be bright. So I have to admit, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. But Susan says, no, it won't turn into a black hole. It rebounds afterwards. The sun is a yellow dwarf that is a cyclical micronova, and this is common throughout the universe. So she also mentioned that the sun would go black at another point. But the sun going black, were you trying to say that it was going to go black for, let's say, 3 days and then come back to being yellow, like whoop, it's going to flip? I'm not sure if I understood.
I know that it's temporary. Okay. I don't know how long it'll last for, but it's temporary.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's temporary, and it's also it's also a bit strange because we look at this and we think, okay, so maybe this is going to happen. Maybe there might be a black sun, but there's also another idea that falls in line with the 3 days of darkness, and that is the idea of the pulse. There's been a thing called the pulse that has been talked about. And so basically, the pulse event is a solar pulse is a context of space weather, which refers to a rapid release of energy from the sun in the form of electromagnetic radiation and charged particles, often associated with solar flares. And these pulses can disrupt Earth's magnetic field, and it can causing geomagnetic storms that can lead to phenomena like radio blackouts, power outages, and auroras. And personally, I think that this might be where, and I can only just sort of speak for myself, but I think that this is where this so-called 3 days of darkness might actually take place, because we are getting more and more CMEs, coronal mass ejections, coming from the sun. Now, I don't know if the sun is in its solar maximus at the moment, but there are definitely a lot more solar activity. The sun is getting a lot more excited, as it were. And if we have a Carrington event, like, the one that took place in 1850, like a Carrington event, at this point in time, yes, for sure, we were going to have those 3 days of darkness, hands down, because everything's going to be wiped out. And imagine you have all these people like, hooked on TikTok and all that kind of stuff, and not having their phones and anything for 3 days. Let me tell you, it's going to reset the planet real soon. But I'm going to also go here and look at some other comments. I have Dean Rivers. He says here, are people just having a harder time coping all around? I sure think I am, but that's just because he's getting old. No, Dean, you're not getting old. You're just fine. You're perfect. And again, Susan Johnson says here, I get a lot of energy and have been waking up early. Well, that's what I was saying. I don't know why I get all this intense energy late at night. I know that it's one thing to be energized or to have a certain amount of energy to be a night owl, but I think this is going overboard. So I really would like to sort of understand what's going on, because I need my sleep and I just haven't been getting any. Here I have Cosmic Detective saying that the time between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Are you trying to say that you wake up every time, Cosmic Detective? Because I get that too. I will get up and I think I go into this deep sleep. I crash on the couch, and then like a clockwork, I'm up at 3, and I have a hard time getting back to sleep. I don't know what that is, but it's kind of interesting. I also have another comment here from Laura Lockwood. And Laura says, then the flash of light could be talked about could possibly be when the sun's light is back on. So I think that the sun is going to play an integral part of this whole 3 days of darkness. This is definitely a part of it. Now, whether it be through a CME or anything else remains to be seen. But I think that the sun is definitely going to, because I don't think it's just, look, some people say, like, I know you're saying, Kevin, that the sun might go dark and become a black sun. That's one aspect, and that's one way we can look at it. But I think another way is that I think it's just going to be dark on Earth, because if you have a big CME that just belches and the sun just belches and then, everything goes dark, it will go dark, because it's basically, we have too much of a dependence on the technology. And I think that maybe some of that might be a way of saying, you know what, we need to go back to being closer to the Earth. We need to go back to relying on one another and not relying on the AI or the technology. And this is definitely going to wake us up. Now, for example, with COVID during that time woke a lot of people up. A lot of people said, look, I didn't have time to think to myself. I didn't have any time. I was just sort of rush, go. And COVID, as much as it was a horrible event for a lot of people, and it was really very, very traumatic for a lot of people, but for some people, it definitely gave them a chance to think and to say, you know what, I need to live my life differently. I need to live my life differently, and I need to do things differently. I need to interact with people differently. And so I could see that that could be the possible outcome for having 3 days of darkness. So if you have 3 days of darkness where you have no light or electricity, no cell phones, people are going to start talking to one another again, you know? And I think that that could be kind of an interesting aspect. Now, there's also been talk as well that if there was a coronal mass ejection, it could lead to a pole shift, which is more to do with with the change in the Earth's magnetic poles as opposed to an actual physical location. It is primarily caused by fluctuations in the planet's magnetic field, which is generated by the movement of molten iron and nickel in the outer core. The North Pole in just above Canada is currently moving across the Canadian Arctic at 34 miles per hour, which is causing significant movement of this pole. So I'm wondering if, maybe a pole shift might be coming, but there's definitely something to be said about the pulse and how this could be a part of why we are going to be experiencing these 3 days of darkness. Now, there's also the talk about getting beeswax candles. I don't know where that's from, but the idea of candles, look, if you want to light up candles, go for it. But I think that it can also be a time for us to prepare. I'm not embarrassed to say that, you know what, if we're going to have this 3 days of darkness, have candles on hand. Have battery powered lights on hand. You never know. Because I think this is really going to happen. I think this is really something that we're going to have to look forward to and to face, because I know that there's going to be a lot of changes on the planet, and it could be something that we will have to learn to survive, because we won't have bank machines or anything. I know, for example, people who went through the ice storm in Montreal, Quebec back in 1998. We had no electricity. It was dark. I lived through that. And it was dark for a couple of days. And I remember at the time when it happened, people were actually coming together and they said, look, for the first time I met my neighbors, because I never met my neighbors before, because I was always on the go, rush, rush, rush. And then it became a time where we had to rely on our neighbors and rely on being with others. And people were saying we invited people to our homes, we shared food, and it really kind of left an impression on Montrealers, because we had to survive. And I can tell you, those were some 3 days of darkness right there. So I don't know if this is going to be a repeat. Maybe Montreal's are going to be ahead of the curve. But this is definitely something that, we could learn from. I don't know. Angela, what do you feel we could learn from all of this?
I think you're absolutely correct in what it is that you say. Part of the channel information that I keep receiving is it's going to be a time for us to, again, be present, to come together, to help each other out. I mean, not to scare people, but hey, if you've got a generator, if you can start to have a small stock of food. I mean, I've seen, and Kevin can attest to this, I've seen a couple of the posts that were directly onto channels, and it was basically, if the power were to go out, do you have enough food to survive? Do you have blankets? Do you have a generator? Do you have, candles, etc.? Do you have what it takes to be able to survive this event? I also do foresee in the future us having farming areas again where we may have small communities. We're going to start going back to the old school ways where everything was not automated. Yes, you all had an agricultural center where there were communes where people would put in work. It's very much like I can't think of what they're called now. Basically, some of the townhouses where everybody does their little part. People would have greenhouses, and certain people would put together whatever their skills were.
Like
if
a commune,
carpentry skills, etc. Yeah, thank you. If you had carpentry skills, or you could cook or whatever, everybody put in their own part. And instead of us being ourselves, keeping to ourselves like we do, and only communicating through cell phones or through literally texting to each other, etc. It's bringing people back together. And I do see that as part of what it is, because we are, again, we are beings that we belong in a situation with other people. We are not meant to be off on our own by ourselves. Earth beings are communal, as that is what our nature is. We're meant to interact with other beings. 9 out of 10 people that I'm aware of prior to COVID, and you're right, it was a horrific event, but most of the people I know are very different now, and they're almost afraid to interact with other people at this point in time. If you're lucky enough to have been in a strong structure where you've maintained friendships and you've maintained, communication with other people, maybe you had friends that you were able to go to, but a lot of people don't have that anymore. And they really, truly have completely changed their way of thinking. And they're much more I-centered instead of we-centered. It's very sad. It is a very, very sad state. And I can see that turning around at some point. And like you were saying, Montreal was one of the areas that was hit. There are a few others that were hit very similarly in the last couple of years with harsh winters, where they opened their homes up. So, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I mean, the Ponte put out a tweet just a few days ago about they're concerned about the energies that are coming through in the next few weeks, that it could potentially knock out the grids for up to 2 weeks. Can you survive? Will you be able to survive without electricity for 2 weeks? And they were very serious about that. And some people blew it off and said, "Oh, great, that's a great idea." And he's like, "Well, that means your refrigerator is not going to work. What are you going to do for food when your food all runs out?" So, it is something to be of concern. But also, if it gets to the catastrophic level of what the Ponte are afraid of happening, where we get hit with such a massive pulse that it completely fries all electronics, and we're talking about destroying electronics, melting them, so that the
so it's another Carrington event, basically, where it'll, instead of knocking out telegraphs, it'll knock out cell towers and completely fry them.
Well, it'll knock everything out. In fact, what will happen is that the entire grid will have to be rebuilt. And talking to Sue, they figured that it would probably take, a minimum of 5 to 10 years. So we'd be back to basically apocalyptic, like Last of Us, Walking Dead kind of thing. So, and at that point, then, people will have to get together as communities to survive as a community, to build gardens as a community, to have hunter-gatherers for community. And people will have to pull together like we did, long time ago, into tribes, literally, for survival. That's what we'll probably end up having to do in order to survive, because surviving on one's own is extremely difficult. Working as a group, tasks can be split, and heads can be put together in order to accomplish particular goals that need to be done, for farming and for survival, for water gathering, for hunting, and everything else, and for protection. So we may end up in that situation, possibly, if it's that bad. But there's other things to worry about as well, because if it is that bad, with the geomagnetic excursion, it's going to, and then Ben Davidson as well has explained this in Space Weather News, that it's going to affect our ozone layer, and it will not be safe to be in the sunlight. It will not be safe, because it'll be like we'll be getting blasted with solar radiation.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's when that's why the Ponte say, it'll be time to go underground, and that'll be the only safe place. And that's why there are cities, throughout, Europe, there are large, massive cities where people were underground for periods of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it may not even be safe for us to be on the surface. We don't know how bad it's going to get.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I'm glad you brought that up because, like you said, there are different areas within Turkey. I think there's Darren Kuyu. I think that there are myths by the different Native American tribes in North America where they had to go underground. And I think the Maya talk about that as well. And many different examples around the planet where people were living underground for a long time and didn't come out because it wasn't safe. But what's interesting is that there was a talk. I think it's the Hopi, and they talk about how the ant people, ant mantis, maybe, the
Yes,
ant people came and helped them to go underground, and
that's right.
helped them to. And when it was time to come up above ground, they were the ones. It was the ant people that came up and helped them to come above ground. So this is what I was getting back to before about how I feel that even though it might be it might be a situation caused by the sun. I think that, and different people are going to have different opinions about different galactic family, but I don't think they want to see us suffer. And so a lot of times in ancient mythology, they talk about how the Space Brothers came down and helped them to survive. They helped them to survive underground and helped them to get food and to have the skills that they needed so they could survive, and then led them up above ground when it was time to come out again. So it's interesting how we read these types of older mythologies, and I'm thinking, are we there now? Is that what this is? Because that's what it seems like. If this is actually going to happen, maybe they're waiting to see, because maybe they also know that something's going to happen, and that they know that if Earthlings don't have help, they are really going to start dying out. So that could be kind of something that's interesting to think about, food for thought, as it were. Now, I do have a comment here from Linda HD. She says, no, 3-day blackout has already occurred back in 2004, 2005, when the eastern seaboard went out and we had no electricity for 3 days. And I remember that. I remember I think it was like the summer, if I'm not mistaken, and it went out, and and people were walking around, and people were just out at night, and it was just dark. And I think at the time also, yes, we were reliant on technology, but maybe not as digitized as we are now, because now we're really like, it's all about the digital aspect. And back then, I think we still had certain aspects of the grid and all that were still electrified and were not going to be melted out, by a big CME. I think that we were still able to sort of get around that. But I do remember that when that happened. And it only affected a small portion, so people could get out of town and go somewhere else. But this is, she says here, we have a much larger blackout coming. Yes, I think so, Linda. I think you're absolutely right. I think that we have something, solar flares are like a giant EMP. Well, that's for sure. And I think that again, whether it be the sun turning dark or whether it be the darkness of the planet, I think we're definitely going to experience that. And Susan Johnson says the poles are already shifting, and they're in Siberia right now. There are also 2 or 3 other minor poles that occur in the main oceans. The pulse is riding the sun's flash. Well, it's going to be very interesting because, as some of you know, there are old maps of the Antarctica, and Antarctica used to be a very warm place with animals and running water. And it seems that at one point something shifted and they were just like flash frozen, and things are just, they've been finding, animals that have been flash frozen in Antarctica. So, I mean, go figure. Something's going to be happening. Something's up. Now,
That's part of the part of the geomagnetic excursion that can potentially happen.
Mm-hmm.
What Ben Davison was explaining is that the sun could have a pole shift, and that would could potentially cause the sun to create that ejection, that massive solar event, which then can do the same thing and then affect the Earth and cause the Earth's axis to flip. And then if that happens, what would happen is, and it also has to do with the molten, what's going on underneath the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the earth is wobbling. So, and the Ponte have talked about this, that the earth it's wobbling, and a wobbling, disc does not necessarily correct itself, does it?
No.
It doesn't. And Ben Davison has explained this, and I've seen the 3D illustrations of what can potentially happen with the Earth. Is the Earth is spinning on its axis, and then it's going to flip, and it's going to go 90 degrees.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, now Antarctica is at the equator, because that's happened before.
Exactly.
And that's the reason why Antarctica was once a tropical zone.
Exactly.
Because the Earth did a flip, and then it would, it may stay like that for 100 years or something like that, and then flip back again. So, and if that occurs, then we're talking about massive tsunamis and displacement of water and total destruction of the coastlines, and the a lot of places would be underwater and destroyed. So they warned about this as well. And this is all the reason why the Galactic Federation is trying to have official first contact, is because they know these things are potentially going to happen, that we're going to need help.
Yeah. And it's funny because you also brought up at one point where you said that they were going to build ships for evacuation. Now, something I'm sure I've mentioned.
They have ships.
Yeah.
There's already ships. There's they're behind they're behind Neptune. They have these massive ships which are equivalent of the Red Cross, waiting to help people, and they can take some people off planet and relocate people to other planets, but they cannot save all 8 billion of us.
But it's interesting because I've heard it being said before. Now, there are a lot of people, I'm very familiar with the UFO story and about people who are experiencers and who have been abducted. And some of the stories that you hear are people who says, you know what, I keep getting abducted and they keep training me to fly ships. They keep bringing me into these ships to fly, and that I'm being given these skills to be able to fly these different ships, and that I keep seeing the same people around me, and we're always being taught something. We're always being taught to fly these ships. And so at the time when I heard that, I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. I wonder why they'd be teaching people to fly ships. But that was way back when I remember watching these documentaries, in the 90s, early 2000s, and it always sounded kind of interesting. But now, as we are here right now in 2025, I say to myself, wow, maybe that's what that is that they're training people to be able to get out there and fly these ships to try to save as many people as they can, because that's what's going to be needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Susie Hansen, who wrote the Dual Soul Connection Alien Agenda for Human Advancement, she writes about in that book of taking, working with the Greys, and it's also saying humans working with the Greys, but also that massive amounts of people were being abducted and brought into these halls and shown videos, and also were being taught things, because these people were the ones who were going to be helping their communities and being the leaders when these catastrophic events take place.
Yeah.
So they're subconsciously teaching people and getting them ready, but when they go back home, they never, they won't remember it. It will be activated when the time comes, when it's appropriate for them to get their memories back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have an interesting comment here from Linda HD. She says, in the 90s, we had people with critical thinking skills still, and that was 30 years ago. And we had a lot of people had skills back then. A lot of people, especially in school, you would learn how to, maybe do some planting. If you were part of the Girl Guides or Boy Scouts, you would learn how to do planting and putting up a tent and all that. And today we have young people, and a lot of people who just don't have those skills anymore. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. And so I'm hoping that what you're saying, Kevin, is that people are going to be given the skills, because I can see a lot of panic on a lot of freak show taking place should this actually occur. Because if, as you're saying, it's not just about 3 days of darkness, but it could be a total meltdown of the grid system that we have. If and 5-10 years as a generation. So like, I mean, we need to be prepared. So I would say, if I had to give any advice, in addition to just buying generators, I would say buy books on how to plant, buy books on how to start a garden, planting
Yeah.
different types of food, and how to get clean water and all that. So I
Yeah,
think those are
woodland
some things.
survival.
I'm sorry.
Woodland survival,
Woodland
being
survival.
able to survive in the woods, being able to put up a shelter, etc. Just in keeping with that, there's two actual points that I'd like to make.
Sure.
One is that we've been talking about saving all 8 billion. If you happen to see a lot of the posts that are going around now, there are a lot of souls that are currently leaving this earth. And that is by design. They agreed to that many eons ago, before they were even born here. And many, many people will be leaving here prior to these events. That is part of what is happening currently. The other thing that is happening, and some people might not be aware of it, is the awakenings that are happening. The crystalline grids that are going to take place, the light codes that are coming in via the sun and via light code channelers are happening very, very much so right now. And what it's doing is it's awakening all of these other latent skills, such as being able to fly the ships, being able to have the other languages, awakening people to what tribe they actually belong to, whether it's, Syrian, Zeta, etc. So those are all actually occurring now as well. And it's happening more and more often and more commonly. And people are literally, in several of the groups that I'm in, they're spontaneously starting to remember. And it's all about remembering right now. So to anyone who's out there, if you're starting to get these things that, you're dreaming about something very strange, or you happen to suddenly get these little flashes, don't dismiss it as, hey, I happen to be losing it, because chances are you're just starting to remember. And that's a big pull on what's happening right now before these events happen, so that those people that are to remember and to help to lead, light workers are one of the big catalysts for it. We are all remembering now. So if you're in that group, please don't dismiss the little things that are happening, or, if you're getting little snippets telepathically or intuitively, it is very real. I'm not saying everyone is going to have it, but it's more common than what people realize. And there are many of us out there.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because I feel that it's true. A lot of people are starting to wake up, and it's everything's sort of happening at the right time. Everything's happening because people are waking up. And like I said, I think that definitely, as Kevin pointed out, I think that the Galactic Federation are definitely around to help us. And it's interesting because I remember many years ago, before my mother passed, she was telling me about a dream that she had, where she saw a lot of ships coming down, and there was a lot of chaos going on everywhere, and these ships were coming down, and they were people who were humanoid, but they didn't really, like, you could see that they were not really earthlings, as it were, and that they were motioning people to come into the ship so they could be saved. And now look, my mother, obviously, she had a very interesting gift. She was able to see things. Her dreams were very, very vivid, and that was a while ago. And I sort of feel that it's always stuck with me, that these are when I put together all my mother's dreams, what people are saying, people who've been having experiences, and people have been waking up slowly. People are also having dreams and saying, "Yeah, I see ships coming down," and asking people to come in. So it's not the first time.
It's funny. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because what's his name? Crosby, Stills, and Nash. What's the guitar player's name again?
I know the Crosby Stills, but I don't know their name. But anyways, it was a guitar player from Crosby Stills.
Yes,
Yeah.
Neil Young.
Okay.
He wrote a song way back called "After the Gold Rush," and in that is, as the silver seeds will land, and something about taking people away. He didn't know what he was writing at that time, but Grant Cameron, the UFO researcher, has talked a lot about that song. That was a channeled song, and it was describing the same thing as what your mother is saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because it stuck with me, and I said, wow, that's kind of interesting. She never really had those types of dreams, before or since that. She had dreams about other stuff, but that was something that really sort of stuck with her because she also saw different beings in her dreams, but in that particular dream, they were coming down and helping people. And I think it's clear that this planet is part of something bigger. It's a part of something bigger. They're not going to allow, they, meaning the Galactic Federation or different beings, are not going to allow this planet to be completely obliterated. No. And so I think that this is the reason why, and actually I want to sort of point that out, is that a lot of people are saying that we were supposed to have disclosure a lot earlier because they knew that this kind of thing was going to be happening. And so people needed to be ready. So I know that this thing has been ramped up. It's been ramped up, and this information is getting out there really, really fast. Now, like I said before, do I feel that everybody's ready? No, I think there are going to be some people who are going to be a little bit shaken. Sorry, but it is going to be happening. And this is why I feel, and maybe I'm just sort of, feeling intuitively, but this is why I feel that people are going to be thrust into this contact, and that contact is going to come a lot sooner because we have to get it together. We don't have the luxury anymore of just being in an ignorant bliss. We have to come together, and we have to be part of this whole disclosure thing. So there's a lot going on, but I wanted to sort of get back to the idea of the solar flares, and the solar flares, as I pointed out, will definitely be a part of what we're going to be dealing with soon. And I think that this is a great segue at this point to talk about the extraterrestrial perspective on this. So some people have claimed that there has been a contact with ET beings that have told them that the Earth is threatened by war or by a threat from outer space, such as a meteor or a solar incident that will take place in the near future. There are other people who have said that aliens talk of an intense flash of light that will separate the good people from the bad, and those who are evil will be eradicated from the planet, leaving only good people behind to create a new enlightened civilization. It has also been reported that when this happens, the aliens will then, at this time, come to live amongst humans again. So I think that I'm going to defer to you, Kevin, as to maybe talk more about it. And I know that some people are familiar with the Ponti, but there are some that are not. Could you just give us a little bit more of an introduction as to the Ponti, who they are, and how you met them? Just sort of give us a bit more background, because I think some people may not be familiar.
Yeah, sure. They show up here and they kick the back of my couch. They drive me crazy, and they take chalk and they chalk up my walls with pictures and stuff like that. You can ask Angela; she's been over here. Mm-hmm. She's seen the crap they do. They've seen the crap they do around here. No, they're actually
they visit me too, so especially when you're around.
No, actually, they're awesome. They're family. They're actually like family to me. The Ponti are from the planet Pontel, which is the fifth planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli 2, the furthest of the binary system in Zeta Reticuli. They've been here for thousands of years. Their records on this planet go back at least 136,000 years. But they've been here for the last several decades preparing for official first contact. They reside in an information station which is under the Sandia Mountain in Albuquerque, New Mexico. No, it's not part of the Sandia military base. It has nothing to do with them. This is an ancient civilization, an older city that's under the Sandia Mountains, which was last inhabited about 60,000 years ago before a catastrophic flood came through the area. But the Ponte have they've refurbished about 15% of the city for their own purposes. So there's a big hangar bay there and whatever else they got going, and an observation tower in the top near the mountain, top part of the mountain. They introduced themselves to Sue Walker, who is a professional telepath. Her husband Otter is a shaman and a telepath. Commander Tilcomb, as you can see below here, he introduced himself to Sue back in around 2015, and then Sue was learning about him and his people for many years, and they decided to create a experiment called Twitter, and they ended up becoming they started getting quite a large following on Twitter and communicating with people on Twitter and communicating with the public society. It was a great success. So I've been involved with the Ponte since since the year 2016. They are trying to get disclosure. They're trying to get official first contact happening faster. Official first contact actually was supposed to happen in the fall of 2021, I believe it was. But because of their monitoring what was going on with the planet, what was happening with the sun, in regards to Earth humans, are they ready for official first contact, and also they have been monitoring the potential false flag alien invasion that the Black Operation military could do. So because of all these reasons, they decided to kind of postpone a official first contact, and they're doing it in a very, very slow drip way of having more ships show up on the daily for people to see. So they're trying to get people to look up in the skies. They're also working behind the scenes, contacting officials of higher importance to try and bring around official first contact a little bit faster. But we're running against the clock now. We're really running against the clock. So the time is running out, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. Maybe something big is going to happen, and the governments will finally admit the truth of what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what? I think that the governments, and maybe this is just my humble opinion, but I think that the governments know that the jig is up. I think that we are really at a point in time in history where this kind of matrix of pain, of wars, of all that kind of stuff is coming to a close. And so sometimes when you want to build, you have to destroy first. And like we said, we don't know what's going to happen. Do I feel like this is going to be a destructive, like that movie 2012, that Hollywood version of destruction? I don't think so. But I do see, like what Kevin was saying is that, if there is some sort of pole shift or something, yes, we could see tsunamis, and we could see, the rising of water levels, that sort of thing. But we've been down this road before. So, we talk about the Younger Dryas period. I know that Graham Hancock has talked about that, and how that was considered what, has been talked about in many different philosophies and different religious thought, is that when we talk about Noah's Ark, that was actually Noah preparing because of the Younger Dryas, where we had like a break in, I think it was a big ice shield, and all this water sort of poured into different parts of Europe and the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and so people reported that as being a cataclysm. Maybe this is what also sank Atlantis. Who knows? But it's something that it's not the first time that we have been faced as a planet with destruction. but there's always survivors, and there's always we rebuild. So it's interesting how we might find ourselves there again. Now, I know some people are afraid, and I think that fear is one of the worst things because we should not be afraid. I think that if you are in a good space and you are positive, you can actually choose your timeline, and you can choose to be on that timeline where things are more positive. Now, I wanted to, I've been getting a couple of messages here from Linda, and I think I'm going to ask maybe Angela to sort of cover this one. And here we have Linda saying, "Are we in danger? People like us, I worry that I'm being hunted by other humans, like the ones that are bad, but the good ones are helping me as well." Did you want to comment on that, Angela? Like, I mean, in terms of like fear, or I don't think that people have anything really to be afraid of. I think that we're going to be fine. Either we're going to be taken up off planet, or we're going to be able to survive by our wits. Because I've heard other people who have been channelers say that yes, something's going to happen, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
I have heard that as well.
Yeah.
I've heard several different schools of thought on it. And part of this depends on the context that Linda is speaking about, relevant to, she's being hunted. And this is not to instill fear in people. Yes, there have been people who have been light workers and who have been doing good work that have been hunted over the centuries, and it is still going on. It is because there are always going to be darker forces that are trying to stop the light from coming up and being able to speak our truth. Many times, and both of you can attest to this, I've been on here and we've had different presentations, and I'm either you can't hear me, you can't see me, things are garbled. It happens on a regular basis. It's because there are always going to be forces trying to stifle the information coming out.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, if you are somebody who is living in integrity, you are not purposely out trying to hurt someone, you are trying to do your best and live your days as a human being. I mean, hey, we are human. It's natural. There are going to be times that we offend people. There are going to be times where, maybe we are not at our best, especially in our younger years when we are very naive. But if you're awakened and you are truly, truly trying to live a life that is a peaceful one, you're not purposely trying to harm others, then you have nothing to worry about. If somebody is out there maliciously preying on people, that's a whole other ballgame. And I mean, that to me is a lot of what the pulse, a lot of what the days of darkness, those who are going to perish, is supposed to be taken care of. So, I mean, you're welcome to reach out afterwards and chat more, Linda, if you've got some concerns. There are several different groups that you can be put in touch with, and people out here that would be more than happy to talk to you about things like this, because there are a lot of people with those similar questions. But in all honesty, if we're living the best life that we can and we're not preying on others and purposely harming people, I really, truly don't see anything to be afraid of. And as I said before, there are already people out there that, and I'm sure everyone has had in their past, several months to a year, a lot of people have experienced people that they never in a million years would have dreamed have left this planet. That was by design. Your soul knows that, and it's only your soul that knows that. So if you're meant to be here, you're going to be here. You cannot live your days being afraid, because then you're going to be a hermit. And I hate to say it, and I don't want it to offend, but it's true. Do you want to live your days, as a joyful person, get out, enjoy the sun, do the things that make you have joy? Or do you want to be somebody who basically want to live your life in fear because I'm afraid constantly? Then you're your own worst enemy.
Exactly. And that brings
and
your
I've
energy
seen
down.
it. I've lived that life. I have lived that life personally. It is not a life. You're the only one who can break free of it.
Yeah.
I can also add to that as well.
Yeah, sure.
The Ponte, they also say, live your life, do good, do good deeds, volunteer and help people, and find your tribe. These are important things, and spread right-mindedness. These are the important things to be doing with your life. But with us, us workers as we are, me being a star seed, I guess I'm not even sure if I call myself a light worker. I've never thought of myself as a light worker, but as a star seed, I'm under a certain amount of risk myself. I know that I'm followed by the military. I've had my lab, a military abduction one time, and but I've also had protection on the other side, where it happened in Hamilton about a year and a half ago, meeting with two experiencers at a coffee house downtown Hamilton, and at the end of our meeting, I went to throw up my coffee, and this gentleman dressed in black with a black duster and a black hat came up to me, and he was a man in black. But he worked for the Galactic Federation, and he was a man in his 70s with curly hair, blue eyes. He came coming around the corner with this big smile, and immediately made eye contact with me, smiling. Walked up to me with his fist like that, and went, "Hey!" And then we just kind of did this fist pump, and then he started walking out the door. And at this point, I didn't know who he was, but I knew immediately. I could feel by his energy that he was not human. He was some kind of star nation. And I told the guys who I was with, I said, "Just hang on one second, I'll be right back." I see him go out the front door. He looked down at his watch, and then he turned to the left. I ran out the door to turn to face him. Vanished. He was gone. Just vanished in thin air. And, I went down the street seeing if I could find out where he went to. All the stores are closed because it's a Sunday. I looked across the street. He's not there. I ran down the other block. He vanished in the thin air. I was freaking out. But then 2 days later, I got a message from Sue Walker, and he had contacted her. And he basically said who he was, that he was a member of he's with the Galactic Federation, Galactic Federation. And he had a message for me. And that message was that for now on, whenever I'm in public, I need to pay attention to my surroundings more and who is in my vicinity, because there could be people who are spying on me. So that was his warning. I need to telepathically project more out and be aware of the people who are in my surroundings when I'm in the public. So there you go.
Yeah.
He's kind of I was told he's like my babysitter. And Sue and Otter, they have Federation babysitters too.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's nice to have friends in high places.
Literally and figuratively. There you go.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes. Now I have a question for you, Kevin. It's actually coming from David M. And he says, the beings that Kevin speaks to, is there a point of contact? And if we reach out to them, will they respond? So I think there are some people who may be interested in reaching and speaking
Absolutely.
with the Ponte. Can you want to sort of run through that and maybe give him some tips and tricks?
Sure. What you want to do is you want to practice your telepathy. You want to have connections with not just the Ponte, but other star nations. You need to work on your telepathy. The Ponte have a free course at their website at officialfirstcontact.com. That's officialfirstcontact.com. And you'll see a link to the Telepathy 101 primer. It's available in about 17 different languages. It's completely free. Download it and read it. It's a pretty easy read. It's mostly pictures, but it'll help you learn about your communication styles. If you're more audio, visual, kinesthetic, feeling, whatever, or combinations of those, and also about how to turn on your headlights with your amygdala in your brain, and learning how to silence your mind in order to be able to differentiate your thoughts from the thoughts that are coming to you, that are not yours. So that's what I've been working on for last year. Okay. That's the biggest one, is learning how to silence your mind through meditation is a great way to do it. Learn how to silence your mind until you start to hear the voices that are not yours. And then you will be amazed. It just opens up an entire new universe to you. It is the biggest paradigm shift you'll ever have in your life when you start to hear voices of others people speaking to you that are not yours. You realize that we are all connected. It's amazing. It really is.
Wow.
So go down
and
that.
it can happen anytime.
Yeah.
Because I had one this morning that came across, and it was, and I know there was somebody else here because the comment was, okay, well, hurry up then. It was a man's voice. So obviously there was somebody else here at the same time.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. But that's what I did is I went on to the telepathy 101 from her, and I started practicing it, and Kevin knows himself, and I've spoken about it on here before. I've had that happen. I've also started to, well, and I can do it quite well now. I've started remote viewing and being able to not just hear, but I can see and put myself into other situations and connect with many different beings. So it does work. It all just depends on the level that you can relate to it, but you need to practice it. And it's morning and evening.
Yeah.
So
You
during
can
those
also,
almost sleep times.
yeah, so sleep times. That's where I practice it is like, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm just in the process of getting back into sleep. And when my mind gets into that alpha theta state, that's when I start seeing images or starting to hear people. So that's what I've been working on for the last year. But you can also work in groups if you have friends or who want to learn their telepathy too. We had a groups through the Ponte. It was a telepathy group. We got together every Sunday afternoon, and we were all in different parts of the world, but we would each take a turn holding an object and concentrating on it, and then the rest of us would draw what what the impressions were that we were seeing, and it was amazing of what we were getting, and it was more than just coincidence of the things that we were picking up through these practices. So that's a great way of getting immediate feedback of how am I doing by working with somebody else, other friends, and doing these little games. The more fun you have with it, the more natural it becomes, and you put yourself into a good positive state, and you learn faster.
Okay. And that's great. And you know what? I think I have a comment that might be, dovetailing into what you were saying, Kevin. I have Linda HD saying, I've been given missions and I don't know what to do with the communications I received. It's hard for me to know which messages are real and which are supplanted to distract me. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes knowing, what's real and, am I, is this not real? It's difficult at first, I still have it too, where sometimes it's like it feels like you're swimming in a pool at nighttime with no lights on, and you're feeling your way through the dark. And what's this feel like? Oh, this feels like a bicycle. Or no, this feels like a lamp. And it's like you're trying to. We're going to make mistakes along the way. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Sometimes we'll be correct. Sometimes we won't be correct. It's all part of the learning process. Don't get discouraged. But it's also a good thing to have a journal, some kind of journal where you can write these things down that take place, thoughts that come to you that don't seem like yours, or words that are used that are not necessarily words that you would use. Try and keep a journal of these things to see if you can find patterns.
Yeah. And that makes sense because I think if you keep a journal, it'll help you to focus some of the experiences that you're having, and it'll help you to sort of get a perspective, because if you go back and you read in the journal, you'll see what you've worked on, and you can also see your progression and your movement towards becoming a lot more telepathic. I have another interesting a comment here from Farouk Ahmad. He says, I choose not to live in fear. I choose to be positive, but I also choose not to be clueless and not really know what's going on. And I agree with that 1,000%, because I was saying, we can't live in fear and say, oh my God, we're going to die. No, I think that what you can do, you can say, you know what? Let me see who my tribe is. Like you're saying, Kevin, find out who is my tribe, who are my people, and literally your family and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, buy books on how to do some gardening, figure out how to clean water, figure out how to live off the land, and maybe sort of learn how to do like first aid, that sort of thing. And I think that that will help you. But I do feel that we are going, I think something is, it's funny because I feel that something's going to happen, but I don't feel the negativity. And I know that some people could be, fearful of this. And you have to also distinguish between what the Matrix has been doing. The Matrix has been giving us these films like 2012 and all these other sort of like scary fear porn type of movies where they're scaring people. And, don't forget that the Matrix also wants to bring down the energy of the planet. And so if they feel you full of fears, it will bring down the energy of the planet. And keep in mind that whatever energy is there can decide what timeline we're on. If people are going to be uplifted, regardless of what's going to happen, and people are going to be in a positive way, people are going to feel positive, it's going to shift us into a more positive timeline, and vice versa if we're much more negative. So all these negative ETs and all these negative beings, if you want to call them, that are controlling the planet, they know their time is up, because they come in, it's going to be different. So they're trying their best to take us down as the ship's going down, and we don't have to go down that road. We can be positive and survive this and create a new world, because it'll be up to us now to create this new world. So as much as I think that the 3 days of darkness, sort of just for coming back here, I think as much as the 3 days of darkness might be seen as something negative, I definitely choose to see it as a sort of like a storm that's there, and then the calm after. You have a storm on the seas, and then you have these calm seas after, and we can at that point move on and create a new world. So I don't see it as negative at all. But obviously protect yourself, kind of like what Farouk was saying. Protect yourself and make sure that you're not putting yourself in harm's way. And so I don't know if there's something more we can say in terms of any kind of spiritual aspect. Did you want to, Angela, talk about how we can prepare spiritually? Because I know we're talking about, energy and all that, and maybe working telepathy. But in terms of a spiritual preparation, did you have any comments on how people can go about doing that?
Absolutely. There are several different ways that you can aid yourself. Part of it is to, try and eat cleaner if you are not already, eating well. The body, being a light body, is more attuned to alkaline substances. So if you drink, your alkaline water, your pH is actually quite important. And there are a lot of different places that subscribe to that. If you practice meditation, practice, following, being present so that you're not multitasking 10 times a day. Start to tune yourself out of all of our lovely electronics that we have. Try and give yourself some quiet time. Meditate if you get a chance. Go out in nature and ground. That's a huge part of it. Mother Gaia is here for us. Absolutely get out in nature. Be around your soul tribe and do things that cause you to be creative. Dance, sing. The more joyous that you are, the more you will find your body likes to gravitate towards joy. Set boundaries. That's a big part of it. If people happen to be invading your boundaries, you are the only one that can set those. And when we set boundaries, essentially that teaches people how to act towards us and what it is that we are willing to accept. If you're going through something, and there are always extreme circumstances, so please don't get me wrong when I say this. If you're in a circumstance where you are constantly allowing people into your energy, you are the only one that can change that. No, it's not an easy task, but it is something that is totally possible. And to be honest, it's called self-preservation. If you have people who are always bringing you down and you go away from them and you're totally drained and you think, oh my goodness, why do I even put myself in that
Yeah.
situation? Give it a hard thought and say, why do you give yourself to that situation?
Maybe give it a
Is it
hard pass
a
while you're at it.
factor? Is it something else? But it's a very, very valid thing, because as we get ourselves out of this and we come into a clearer way of being, it's amazing how much opens up around us. Be grateful. Gratitude is huge. I just very recently mentioned to my friend's oldest one, before you go to bed at night, think of 3 things that you're grateful for. Just 3. Doesn't have to be the same ones every day. When you wake up in the morning, think of 3 things that you're grateful for. It puts you in that mindset of gratitude. We take so much for granted that it really, truly is a sad state of affairs. The fact that we have technology that we do and we can do this, I'm grateful for that, because not so long ago, I couldn't do this. I didn't have the internet that I could do this on. So I'm very grateful for that and being able to share today.
Yeah.
Share your knowledge with other people. Those who are just awakening or how are in a state of awakening, they don't necessarily know what to do. If you have knowledge, share it. You don't have to push it to them. But if they ask the question or they say, hey, I'm in this kind of a stage and I don't know what I'm doing with this. Is this something you've ever heard about? People are afraid enough to talk about it. I've gotten to the point now that I accept it for what it is. I know it is a gift for me to share with other people, and I'm quite happy to do that. But there was a time not so long ago that I was very afraid, because I was afraid of being judged. That doesn't bother me anymore. This is who I am. And I'm always out there willing to take on people, or if people want to have information, I will share whatever it is that I can to help and guide you, because that is part of what my purpose is. One of the very small purposes that I have. There's so many different things that you can do for yourself. And if you look online and just say, what type of spiritual things can I do? You don't have to go and start praying in a church every single day. You don't have to go and, completely change your whole routine. It's little tiny things that you can do for yourself that you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home to do, unless you can't, you're someplace where you can't get outside really, but it doesn't have to be anything major. Water is very clearing. Make sure that you clear your energy and send energy back to others at the end of the day, because we tend, especially if we're around other people a lot, we tend to take on all of those cords and all of those energies. And especially if you're an empath, you absorb all of that, and people don't realize at the end of the day, just say, thank you very much. I return any energies that are not mine back to those that, they belong to, and protect yourselves. Anybody who is out there and subscribes to it, you're welcome to just picture a bubble of light around yourself. So when you go out into the public, or when you are sleeping as well, that you can put this protection layer over you and keep yourself safe. All you have to do is it's intention. Intention is everything. If you put the intention out that you are keeping yourself safe, you are putting a white light around yourself to, bubble yourself and your energies, and that only love and light and benevolent beings can come towards you, then that is what you're going to have. It's essentially, don't put out harmful things to Gaia. Don't put out harmful things to other people, because unfortunately 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to get back immediately. And that is another part of it, is the mindset. If you can try and think more positively, and I'm not saying you have to do it, every 5 seconds, but refocus yourself. If you're having a bad day, do something to refocus. Put yourself on some music that you really like, or read some poetry, or go and just change your mindset. Color a picture in a book or something. Let your inner child out. Have fun. Those things change our attitude. It changes our aura. It changes our mindset. And it's so important that we all start to really live in a lighter, we're all so focused on work for the most part, and we have to do this and we have to do that. Well, I hate to say it, but just because you didn't do the dishes, they're going to be there later on. You can go and do them after. You don't have to do them right this second. It's little changes like that.
We all like that idea.
Like that you can make, that, you know, they may not be a huge thing for you, but do a whole bunch of little things and they do add up, and they do make a huge difference in your mindset and the way that your body receives information and puts out information, and the way that your energy projects out to other people. Because, you know, people can feel your energy when you come into a room. They can feel your energy. If, you know, if you're down and grumbly, chances are people are going to stay away from you or be down and grumbly too. You don't have to be. You're the only one that can change it, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we can really resonate with everything that you've said, Angela. I think it's a top notch. And I think that everything.
I had a couple things I was going to add to that.
Sure, please do, Kevin. Go ahead. And
after, I'm sure actually, I forgot a few.
Yeah.
everybody has to buy a bird like him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, Frisco is wonderful.
Yeah.
He makes life so much fun, and he's very intelligent. He's not for sale, but he likes to nibble on Angela's feet, and he bugs her all the time. If she goes to the washroom, he drags his beak on the ground and
yes, he is my bestest friend.
There you go. And you know, Kevin, I know you want to add a couple of things, but at the same time, I also wanted to ask you if you could talk more about the Sue Walker's book. I think you might have a copy of the book, and maybe we can just talk very briefly, because I think that that book for people is going to really help people to really understand what to expect and how they can understand what's happening, especially with the idea of extraterrestrials coming to live on this planet. So would you be able to sort of just show us the book or talk about it?
Yeah, I can go get it. Hang on a second.
Sure. So
Frisco, you talk while I'm here.
So basically, Sue Walker is an amazing author who has written a book, and she's talking about how, as some of her experiences and what's been happening on the planet, and how we as human beings can learn from the different groups. And it's not particularly the Ponte. I'm not sure if she's talking about other groups, but she's talking in general about how extraterrestrials are here to really help us, and that the book that she has written is in many ways kind of like an instruction book as to what's happening. So I'll just get back to Kevin. So Kevin, you want to tell us a bit more about that book?
Sure, yeah. This book is called Inviting ET, which is how to host a CE5. Okay. And a CE5 is where you call in the ships to interact with you, to call in, star beings. Okay. It's something that Dr. Stephen Greer has been doing for many years, and he's developed techniques to do it. And I've participated in that course when he came to Toronto, and it was an absolute amazing course. And then 30 minutes of the presentation was showing pictures of the ETs, the different beings that came down to visit them, with people who were participated. Sue Walker, she wrote her own version of the book called Finding ET. So it has a breakdown in regards to the best practices of how to do it. Choosing locations and times and placing, sending out your telepathic invitation to star beings, and just the best practices. Keeping electronics away, what to bring, what not to bring to these events. Do you bring kids? Do you bring a Ouija board? Absolutely not.
No, that's the worst.
Also, what to expect when things happen. Different kind of communication, different kind of things may happen during a CE5 of interaction or connecting with star beings, which you may it may not be what you were expecting. Sometimes it could be you could hear stones that are being thrown from the forest, or a stranger may show up out of nowhere and start talking to you. And where'd this guy come from? Don't know. Because that happened to Nancy Tremaine and I at a UFO conference, where she and I actually manifested two extraterrestrials to show up in person. They met us back at the convention center in front of the hotel as people, and we just thought they were just really weird. It wasn't until later on that evening when certain things happened that we realized that they were actually Star Nations, the ones that we had invited to meet with us. So don't judge a book by your cover, because I made that mistake and I paid for it. I was so upset with myself, realizing I could have asked these people so many things, and I realized I blew it. So
you didn't know.
Yeah, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah, but you didn't know, and you do the best that you can, right? And then sometimes, but the thing is now is to recognize that you can have that connection. And I think that if you have that connection, you can maybe be part of the alien intention for here on Earth, and how you can help to, for example, guide these ships or guide people or help people. Because, like I said, I feel that. Yeah, you want to show that book there? It's Sue Walker. You want to show just like her name? Sue Walker. There you go.
Yeah, Sue Walker, Reverend White Otter.
Oh, okay. There you go. So if anybody, I'll put a link down below in the description so people can check that out. And I can't remember the title, Kevin, but I think there was also another book that you have about a woman who also was working with different extraterrestrial beings. And you've mentioned that book before. I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Because I think that one is also very important. And it's important for people to know that, you can help yourself as well in terms of getting preparation. But I think that when you look at the whole concept of 3 days of darkness as humanity, that we are going to be able to get through this. And so it's just a matter of time. Exactly. That's the book. Yeah, that's the one. Can you give us a little bit more information about this one for people who are not familiar with this book?
Sure. This book is called The Dual Soul Connection, The Alien Agenda for Human Advancement by Susie Hansen. Mm-hmm. She's from New Zealand.
I'm sorry, we lost your connection. Can you say that again? She's from?
Her interactions with the group.
So I guess that different groups are trying to...
Yeah, she's from New Zealand.
Okay. Kevin? Okay. So Kevin, you sort of dropped out there. Here? Sorry, we lost you for a minute. So you mentioned that she was from New Zealand? Can you just repeat that again?
Yes. Susie Hansen is from New Zealand, mm-hmm. And this book is about her interactions with the Greys for over her entire lifetime. She goes into descriptions about being on the ship, who she interacted with, what they showed her, the tests that they put her through, showing her what happens when a nuclear explosion takes place on Earth and how it affects the multiverse. Mm-hmm. And this book just goes into extreme detail, showing children, hybrids, working with energies and playing with objects telepathically, or floating things in the air. This book is incredible. The detail it goes into, with also the Greys working with humans behind the scenes to help prepare humanity for the coming Earth disaster events which are taking place. So this goes into great detail. It also talks about some of their technologies, and the technologies that she observed on board. I honestly think that this book will be a mandatory read in schools after official first contact. This book is that important.
Yeah, but they do cover, since we're on the topic of 3 Days of Darkness, do they cover in that book about the different types of disasters? What are they talking about exactly in that book?
They do show, I believe, from what I remember, they do show the event, the solar nova of what it looks like. They showed it to her from space and also from the ground. Also, my friend Robert Fullington, who's an experiencer, he was shown the exact same thing. He was shown it from space and also what it looks like standing on the ground with everything like rainbows and stuff like that, rainbow colors everywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and did they talk about ships coming down? Like, what are they going to be doing? Like, maybe because I was under the impression that they were going to discuss about how they were also going to come down to the planet in addition to other groups and helping to clear people off the planet. Or I'm on the wrong path here?
Well, I don't know exactly how it's all going to take place. I really don't. I'm not sure. I don't think, I know that the Ponte have said, enjoy every day that you've got, enjoy every morning and sunset, because there might be a day where you might wake up and you're on a different planet.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And so just to sort of tie up, thank you so much, Kevin, for that. I really appreciate that. And I think that I think people can really gain a lot of insight from those books, and they can use that as a way to further their own research. And as some people have wanted, they wanted to be able to connect with some of these beings. So now you have the way in which to do it. And I just want to sort of tie up tonight's talk because I know as we were saying, Angela, some people are going to be afraid and some people are going to be looking for guidance. And I think that you have so much to offer. Did you want to talk a little bit more about some of the work that you do spiritually and some of the type of things that you can offer people if they're looking for a little bit more guidance?
Well, I can definitely do that. First of all, one thing I do want to mention, and Kevin knows this 100% because he found out the hard way with it. When you're calling in beings, please make sure that you ask for benevolent beings.
Yeah.
It's very, 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 very
Yeah.
important, because otherwise you don't know what you're going to have come in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can attest to that. When you're meditating, make sure that you surround yourself in white light, even while you're meditating. Because I had a visitor show up and it followed me to Angela's place and tried to suffocate me with a pillow, and then came back to my place 2 weeks later and scratched my arm. And it was a mythical creature who's referred to as a hag. They are real. I was attacked by one. Wow. Came here, spoke to me while I was meditating. She started to talk to me telepathically, and as clear as you could hear my voice, she was talking to me. But then she started going, making all these really horrible sounds.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No thanks. So we'll stick more to to the light.
Yeah. Make sure.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're only benevolent beings of love and light. That's what I say when I call them in. Some of the things that I can help people with and that I can suggest, other than a lot of the experience that I've been through now already myself, is I do things like cord cutting with people, which is essentially when people have been around a number of people, they may not have ever had a cord cutting in their entire life. And that can be very important because you don't know what kind of things you've carried with you through past lives or through just connections with people. It could be bad feelings, breakups, things along that line. So that's a big thing that I can help people with. I am intuitive and I am a psychic, so I do happen to get a lot of information. I do channel as well. So a lot of times if I'm speaking with people, I might get something that comes up and I will ask them straight out, are you aware of this, or does this happen to make a reference to you? I've had a lot of people who have said, yes, those gifts have been increasing as well. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I I speak light language as well, which is very healing. We all can speak light language. People may not be aware of that. We each have our own light language, and to hear it back, if you record it for yourself, it's very healing, but the intention is there, and that is what heals other people. Just as a side note. But I also do, I'm trying to think now what it's called.
Well, you do Reiki as
think what
well,
it's called.
you know?
Yeah, well, I do Reiki, but I also do remote viewing.
Okay.
So many times if I'm talking to people and they're saying, I had this kind of an experience, I can literally see, and I know it sounds very strange, but it really does happen. And I've had no training for this. This all came on its own. And so this is what happens when you start getting opened up, is I can see things exactly as they are describing them, and I am actually there, and I can describe those things to that person, even though they may not have told me all of the information behind it. And I've done that time and time again with people with quite a large amount of accuracy. So there's a lot of different things that I can help people with. I do have a site, and I can put that information in. It's actually readings and Reikis and much more. But I will put it in the site for Crystal so that she's got
we'll
it.
put it down.
And anybody who might want to have those services. I also do tarot readings, oracle readings, things along that line. So I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I've had people come back to me numerous times and come in and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that what you told me actually happened or came true, etc., which is a great testament. But I am more about helping people and sharing my knowledge. If I can help and guide you, and that is part of what my purpose is to help people on their path. And I know that is a big portion of what I do. And that fills my heart with joy for me to be able to do that for somebody. You know, most times, I hate to say it, it's an energy exchange. So to me, I mean, I'm just happy to help somebody and give them some guidance. That is part of what I'm about.
Okay, perfect.
So
perfect. And I just want to say I will be putting Angela's information in the link, in the description below, and you can contact her. She's absolutely amazing. And if I know there's some people who are probably here for the first time and are wondering, I think, Linda, you're wondering, you can always join us on meetup.com. And our group is the Star Seeds and Lightworkers Collective. So you can join us there and you can become part of the group and take part in some of our discussions. So you're more than welcome to join us there. And I wanted to say thank you so much to Kevin for all his wisdom and with the Ponte. And I also want to say thank you to Angela for all your wisdom in general with everything to do with the spiritual aspect of our talk tonight. And I wanted to just say that tonight's event was a way to just explore the topic. I don't think you should walk away from this topic feeling scared or disturbed by any of it. It's just that this is what we've been talking about, and I feel that as human beings, we are going to be going towards something much better than what we have now. And I just want you to take that with a positive, going towards the positive. Angela, did you want to sort of...
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is supposed to be a reset, and that's what this is all about. It is a reset for the human race. That is what the whole purpose behind this is, so that we can be in a higher dimension, in a better place for all of the ones that are supposed to be traveling in that direction. There will be some that stay behind. They have chosen that prior to them being born, and it could be past lifetimes. So please don't be afraid if that happens. It's already been happening.
Yeah, exactly.
They made that choice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, they always say we chose to be here. And I know sometimes people are like, what? Why would I choose to be here? This is so crazy. But we did choose to be here. And we are going to be the builders of the new earth. So I think that this is something very exciting, and always remain in the positive. So I just wanted to say thank you to Kevin and Angela for being here with me tonight and for moderating this presentation, and for Angela for giving us so much to think about and sharing her knowledge with us. We are truly grateful. And I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Please, please like and subscribe. Can't say that enough. Please like and subscribe, and you can always join us at the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. We do events every Wednesday, so I'm hoping to see you here. And yeah, I think it's been a very good conversation. I'm very happy with the way things went tonight. And it's you know what? It's just a way for us to prepare. I think this is what this is. I think tonight was really a great way to discuss, because I know that it's sometimes, it's there and you kind of like, oh, it's there, but it's in the corner. I think to sort of bring it out and talk about it. And so I think by talking about it, we open it up and we discuss, and we don't have to live in fear. So I want to say thanks again to Kevin and Angela, and I want to say thank you again to everyone, and to Chris, our moderator. And I hope to see you next week at our next event. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. That was great.